Karl Tyler always wanted to own a ranch in the salmon area, having grown up there as a kid. He remembers watching the salmon spawn in the creek with his friends.
My cousins and I fished on this section of the river, and before snorkeling was popular with the Fish and Game, we were snorkeling looking at the salmon back in the 60s.
When Tyler went to college at the University of Idaho, he got a job washing cars at a local dealership, working for 90 cents an hour.
Well, I was working in the shop and running the wrecker at night, and I used to joke with the owner that I was going to be his top salesman.
Turns out that Tyler wasn't joking. The hardworking kid from Salmon not only became the top salesman, he ended up buying the dealership. Today, he owns several car dealerships in the Intermountain West.
But once I got to Missoula and opened up the Chevrolet dealership there, I saw where it might be possible to eventually own a ranch, which has been my goal, as I mentioned, since the early 1960s. I believe it was 1994, I was able to buy this initial place here from Jack Powers, Jack and Betty Powers, super nice people. And they were concerned with the salmon, the trout. They worked with Trouts Unlimited quite a bit in trying to protect the habitat here as well.
It's called the Little 8 Mile Ranch. Nestled in the lush Lemhi River bottoms, the ranch includes 20,000 acres of deeded land, 10 miles of prime salmon spawning habitat, and more premium habitat in Big Springs Creek, a large spring-fed stream that also winds through the ranch. Tyler has been thinking about preserving the salmon spawning area in the Lemhi River for years. He's been approached multiple times by people who wanted to buy the ranch because of its high environmental and recreational values.
The salmon, I believe it's 60 to 80% of the reds are right here on this stretch of the river. And so it's real important to me that we protect those, because I want to do my part to protect that, because I remember how much I enjoyed those salmon when I was 10, 12 years old. Carl Lufkin and I, at least 10 years ago, started talking about what we could do to improve the ranch and protect the ranch, keep the ranch's integrity for agriculture. We talked to a couple of different groups, and most of them were, in my opinion, pretty closed-minded to agriculture, didn't understand agriculture. They were all worried about just subdividing, and they didn't have the same goals that I did.
But then Tyler approached Kristen Troy at the Lemhi Regional Land Trust. Troy is a native of Salmon, Idaho. She knows the local culture.
Kristen understands both sides of this and understands how important agriculture is to Lemhi County, but also understands that agriculture, cattle, farming, can improve the habitat for wildlife, like we did the sage-grouse, like we have the antelope. We have more game on this ranch than I've ever seen in my life. There's more elk, more deer, more antelope, more sage-grouse than there was here when I was a kid.
It took more than 4 years for Troy to work out the details of a conservation easement with Tyler. Potential funding partners included the Bonneville Power Administration and the Idaho Governor's Office of Species Conservation.
We really help build a bridge between the funding sources, our science-based partners, and the landowner who's on the ground. That really is our job, and that was a big challenge, because the outcomes that our science-based partners were looking for and that the funders were looking for, those were serious outcomes that the landowner had to think long and hard about.
Troy had to balance the needs of the fish and the funding partners with the interests of the Tyler family. It wasn't easy.
Some of the outcomes that the funders and our science partners were looking to achieve sounded pretty steep and not not automatically like just doable, you know, right out of the gates. I mean, we're talking about water saving measures. We're talking about changing up management. We're talking about trying to keep a certain amount of water in the stream all the time and how to manage for that. Those are really big issues.
One of the key provisions for salmon was for Tyler to retire an irrigation diversion, L63, to leave more water in the Lemhi River for fish.
He is giving up a significant diversion and a significant water right. That water was going out and irrigating a field, and now is going to stay in stream in a part of the Lemhi that our biologist partners have determined is really flow limited. That was a huge issue.
Even before the negotiations began, Tyler had fenced the river bottoms to protect salmon spawning areas from cattle. The fences help with cattle management.
Actually, with the fencing that we've done to protect the habitat, we're able to make smaller breeding pastures for our registered animals. So, in my opinion, it's worked out really well. And the big thing I find is it helps us so that we can not overgraze a particular pasture. We can concentrate the cows in a particular area and then keep track of the grass and what the cattle are doing there, and we can move them.
Tyler also leaves one of his alfalfa fields watered by a pivot for sage-grouse and antelope.
One pivot that we don't cut for two reasons. It's a little bit rocky, but by not cutting it, it gives us fall pasture for our cows, and it gives the sage-grouse and the antelope a lot of really good habitat. There wasn't any sage-grouse here when I bought the ranch.
Over time, Troy and Tyler worked through all the issues to complete an $11 million conservation easement.
We ended up getting at really virtually all of the outcomes that were hoped for and wished for. But I think we did a great job together and as a group refining those along the way and tweaking them enough to where there was the comfort level to say yes to permanence.
The way we run the ranch, I don't really consider these to be sideboards. I consider it to be good management. Down the road, I think people will find that this was a really good thing, not just for today, but long term. This is going to be a really good thing for salmon, for agriculture, and for Lemhi Valley.
Tyler credits the Governor's Office of Species Conservation for helping make the deal happen.
Ranching and anadromous fish are completely compatible, especially when you're working with a team of folks and all of the concerns can be aired and different solutions can be discussed. That is what has really built confidence with the landowner. Through our partnership with Bonneville Power Administration, we were able to contribute $8 million via the Idaho Fish Accord, and then $3.5 million approximately came from the state of Idaho's Snake River Basin Habitat Trust Fund.
The Bonneville Power Administration wants to improve the habitat in the Salmon River Basin. Edmondson says the Tyler property fits the objective perfectly.
This property brought more to the table to do more for that than any other single piece of property, definitely in the Upper Salmon, maybe in the state of Idaho. So there's always a high level of interest in this.
Kristen worked harder than I've ever seen anybody work in my life to get this accomplished. The state of Idaho, in my opinion, is the only reason that this worked.
It's probably one of, if not the most significant acquisition or easements that we could do in the entire Upper Salmon Basin. The Lemhi River was, was a very large historic producer of chinook salmon. The property and the habitat that exists on the Tyler Ranch is some of the best, if not the best habitat we have in the Lemhi Basin for chinook salmon. In a year like last year where we had roughly 230 reds, we probably counted 100 or more on the Tyler property.
Tyler's neighbor, letter rancher Merrill Beeler, owns the ranch upstream of Tyler's place and the ranch downstream of it. He's very supportive of the agreement.
When you begin to look at the Tyler conservation easement that's on the Lemhi, I think it probably has the heart of the Lemhi. This is maybe the most important conservation easement that we've done. It's certainly the most complicated conservation easement that's been done. And this is a great win for you know, for our community. It's a great win for the valley. So I just was talking to a young man, I think Sunday, and he said, you know, I wish I could freeze this moment in time. And so there's sort of that feeling of wellness in our valley, and I think you can't beat that.